Welcome back to week 5 of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. This week I dug deep into the back of the freezer and pantry, the things that have been waiting their turn. I'm slow cooking a honey ham with frozen pineapple, stretching what I have into a cozy soup, making red beans and rice from pantry staples, and even using up that nearly forgotten anchovy paste in the homemade Caesar dressing. There's fresh ground flour, fermented apples, a quick seed unboxing, and an apple pie bread made from leftovers. If you've ever wondered how to turn old pantry items into real meals, stay with me. This week might surprise you. This is week 5 of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge, and I feel like I could probably go several more weeks, if not months, if I truly wanted to get through absolutely everything in my pantry and freezers. I know that's not necessarily the goal with this pantry challenge, however, and I'm just trying to focus on the things that I have had in there for a while. For an example, these are leftover bone broth cubes that I didn't want to can and didn't want to put into anything in the freezer like a big jar. So I put these into little muffin containers and I forgot about them. So they've been in there quite a while. So this was a good opportunity for me to use it up because I did not have any broth thawed or canned and shelf available to me. So I was forced to use this, which came out really well and delicious. And I have a lot of that frozen pineapple that I'm still trying to get through that I have shared with you in previous videos by making them into smoothies. So this is a pre-cooked ham that I had bought from Costco a while ago, and I just needed to use it up. So what better than a honey and pineapple slow cooker ham as an easy meal for the family. And I was super busy that night, so this is about all that you'll get to see of it, but I did serve it with some rice. On this day, I had taken out some of the sausage in our freezer to use, and I figured I would just use up some of the odds and ends that I have in the refrigerator to make a play off of the Zuppa Toscana soup. And it is one of my personal favorite soups, but you will see that this is definitely made differently than a traditional recipe that you will find, one of those copycat recipes. With it being winter, I want to utilize this time to be able to make as many soups as I can. I absolutely love soups. My family is not the biggest, or I should say, my kids are not the biggest fan of soups. So I really try to get away with it when I can. And this is one of the soups that my whole family will eat, and it's pretty basic staples. There's the onion, the garlic, the celery, and the carrots. And I'm also using about 2 pounds of sausage. I have used many different kinds of meat for this. I assume you could probably even use something like venison, which I am truly unfamiliar with, but this soup is definitely very forgiving. I have 4 of these potatoes left over in the pantry, and I washed them all and then decided that I was only going to use 2 of them. So I did get half of the remainders used in this soup, which was great. You can always peel yours if you are more comfortable with that. I like having the added nutrition of the skins, and my kids don't seem to mind them really. And just adding some simple salt and pepper to this dish as I go along. You just do it to your taste. You go and look in the camera? Look in the camera?
No.
No. As you can tell, dinner time is quite busy for me. So meals like this that I don't have to sit there and stare at a recipe or something I can just throw together like this is super, super helpful for me, and usually what I gravitate towards, as you can understand. So this is broth that I was trying to defrost, and the fat cap I was trying to take off. I just really didn't want to add that to the already greasy meat that I was using. But of course, if you are someone who likes that and the added flavor to it, by all means leave that in there. I did end up adding about another quart of water from the Berkey into this just because I wanted a little bit thinner consistency. And then I am just adding the potatoes in until they are done at a nice little simmer. I forgot to show you that I had been adding in tablespoons of the sour cream because I am out of heavy whipping cream, and this is a great substitute. You do not have to add anything like this if you do not want to, but it does add that extra depth of flavor. And because I am also out of kale, we are going to be using the spinach that I have. It does cook down really well, so I'm not even going to bother chopping it. But it came out quite tasty. I do still personally prefer to have that crunch of the kale in this soup, but this was still a nice substitute. Here in Northern California, we are having a severe false spring. I've shown you in previous videos how I actually have my volunteer sunflowers already about to bloom. It's absolutely insane. So of course, I am ordering some seeds, things like these sweet peas. I will show you later on where I am planting them in next week's video, but these are supposed to be really nice and great smelling. I've never done them before, and then I was just kind of looking for seeds that I didn't have, like the little chocolate cherry tomatoes or the San Marzano ones, things that I think that my family would really enjoy. I do have some really big, great plans for the garden this year, and I hope that you guys stick around and see what I have in store for that. So I do have a lot of things in my pantry, like these sardines or the canned salmon. Of course, I have tuna, I have canned chicken, things that I have in there for like long-term storage, but I do like to pull from it every so often just to make sure that I am getting through it. And that is what I am doing on this day. I'm going to use, I think, my last can of pink salmon and these sardines to make a quote unquote tuna salad for my children. And again, just using basic staples that I already have in my pantry. So the basics that I am adding to this salad is, of course, red onion. You can use yellow or white onion, and the celery and carrots you can chop or even shred them. Sometimes my children actually prefer that. And right now I'm just making a very quick mayo. I have shared this recipe before with you guys. It's really simple. It's about a cup of oil and an egg, an acid of some kind. I used apple cider vinegar, some Dijon mustard, salt, and pepper, and you can add other things to it as well. You can actually even ferment this so it lasts longer for you. I think that's pretty fun to do and actually really simple. If you're someone like me who actually did not grow up eating like this is really something very simple to make from scratch. And you can also add in things like extra mustard, like I'll be doing, and some salt and pepper, garlic powder, or even fresh raw garlic is really good in this. Some other things that I have done is obviously cucumbers or even some dill pickles. Those things add a wonderful light crunch to it, and I am definitely a fan of that. I've also added things like cashews and sesame seeds or pumpkin seeds to it, and it is just great for my children. I showed you a couple weeks ago when I was making these fermented apples from a local orchard. My kids absolutely love these, but these were not the proper type of apple to really use for this. She had mentioned, the orchard lady, that these would not be good for necessarily like pies and things because they're super soft. Well, they get even more soft as they ferment, so they pretty much fall apart. But that does not stop my children from eating them, thankfully. And for their lunch that day, you can see I just added a little bit more spinach that we had left over and some leftover bread that we were getting through. So I want to preface this by saying I am not trying to make authentic red beans and rice. I am taking a recipe that I found and I am changing it to make it work for the things that we have on hand. So for starters, I am using bacon grease and I am cooking up this linguiça that we have. And instead of like the authentic sausage, or forgive me, but whatever it is that you're supposed to be using, I'm also not using any bell pepper in this recipe. Again, I'm just using the staples that I have, which is the onion and celery here. And the reason that I picked this recipe tonight is because I have these 4 cans of kidney beans that have been sitting in my pantry for several years at this point, and I just want to use them up. And I also wanted to see how my children felt about red beans and rice. I am assuming that most people at this point do know how to make rice and have a preferred method for making rice. I go back and forth between the stovetop and the Instant Pot because I was already cooking on the stove. I just decided to go ahead and use my Instant Pot this day. I did 2 cups of rice and 4 cups of filtered water. I typically like to use broth, but again, I am running very low. So this was what we worked with this day. So with this recipe, I am taking the meat out. I am going to leave the fat in there, the grease. You don't have to. You can take some of it out again if you really don't need that extra fat and nutrition in your diet. Some people don't. For my children, they absolutely do. So I leave that in there for basically every single thing that I make them. I'm just going to go ahead and use that grease to saute the celery and onions. While that is sauteing, I'm going to go ahead and drain and rinse all of these cans of beans. Obviously, if you have dry beans you're working with, you might need a little bit more prep for this, but this was a very quick and easy meal on this night for us. I'm adding in 2 of my pucks of frozen garlic. It does take a little bit of time for those to thaw and cook in. Generally, you would only add, the garlic in about a minute or so before you add in the water. I added in some more of the salt and pepper. I will link the original recipe to this in the description box below, and you can see what changes that you may need to make or not make to make this work for you. And as you can see, this broth did not defrost in time, so I do end up popping it in the microwave for about 30 seconds to get it to come out of its jar. When I first saw somebody making this and squishing down the beans, I really thought, wow, they're not going to have any beans left over. Now, after doing it, I realize it really does not smash that many beans. But you do want to smash your beans to get a nice thick consistency for this meal. I let this cook down and I smashed it a few more times for probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And it came out with a beautiful consistency and was absolutely delicious. And of course, the rice came out perfect. I mean, it's an instant pot. As long as you put enough water in there, you really can't go wrong with it. I can definitely see why this meal is a staple for so many households. It was absolutely delicious, and I will definitely be making it again. Samuel, you're fine. If you have not delved into the world of grinding your own wheat berries for flour yet, I highly recommend you get on this gravy train. I cannot tell you how much I absolutely just love doing this, and the flavor is just unsurpassable for the pre-ground stuff. I have found that since I have been grinding my own flour, that I am okay with my kids having more sweet treats, so to speak, because I know that they're getting the amino acids and nutrition from this fresh ground flour more so than they would ever have been with the all-purpose flour that I used to use. And because I am using a lot of homemade ingredients, even the vanilla is something that I make from scratch. I use the vanilla beans and the alcohol and let it steep. I do have quite a bit in my cabinet to go through as well. So because I don't always think things through, I needed to soften this butter because I didn't take it out the night before to pre-soften. Just remember, do not actually melt it through. You want it to be softened, not melted. Making apple pie bread. I'm gonna double the recipe from the home ground flour book. I'll put the link for this again in the description box below. I've gone through this book a lot, but this is a first for me because I have the canned apple I'm still trying to get through. And this calls, one of the recipes calls for 1 apple, so that's why I'm doubling it, because I feel like this would be good for 2. Softened the butter, didn't melt it, softened it, and now I'm just gonna start going with it. I do like making my own brown sugar because then I never have to worry about it being hard. So I am doubling this recipe, so I'm just going to tell you what the recipe actually says. It says to do 1/3 of brown sugar and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then you're going to add another 1/2 cup of sugar with the 1/2 cup of softened butter. And you're going to beat this together until it's smooth and creamy, just like you would for cookies. After that, you're going to go ahead and add 2 eggs, one at a time, beating in between. And once those are incorporated well, you're going to go ahead and add in the vanilla, which she writes 2 teaspoons. I always measure with my heart. So with this, I'm going to drain it, and I'm going to use the liquid from this. We'll see. I'm going to use the liquid from this in place of the milk, and if I need extra, I will add in the milk. So this recipe calls for 2 cups of freshly milled soft wheat flour and 2 teaspoons of baking powder, half teaspoon of salt, and a half cup of milk, which I did have enough of the apple juice. I did not have to add any of the milk. I am going to just kind of watch the consistency. If you've ever made any kind of quick bread, you know what kind of consistency you're looking for. So I am just adding in this juice really, really slowly. And as you can see, this is a really thick consistency, so I do want to make it a little bit thinner so that it bakes up nicely. I have found that when I am greasing my glass pans, I need to use a thicker oil. I cannot just use anything like olive oil because things do not come out of it. So I am using up the rest of this coconut oil that I have. I did not follow the exact directions to this recipe. I kind of made it more like a coffee cake would be, or like a little swirl. I did not put any apples on top. I just left them all in the middle, and I'm glad that I did that based on how my oven cooks. I think with these pre-cooked apples, if they had been on top, they might not have tasted so great by the end of the baking process. So I am adding in the topping, which was the brown sugar and the cinnamon that I had made in the beginning. And then I'm just adding the rest of the batter on top. And then I will top it off with the remaining cinnamon and sugar topping. You're going to go ahead and put this into a preheated 350-degree oven for about 35 to 40 minutes. I think mine was in there probably closer to an hour, but again, I'm at a higher elevation. I had shared in a previous video that I had found anchovy paste in my refrigerator as I was cleaning it out, and I wanted to make some Caesar dressing with it on this day just to use it up. I had made a smaller batch previously with it and it was absolutely delicious, and here I am making a bigger batch of it. I will link the recipe for this in the description box below. And I'm not going to show you how to make mayo again. So I already did 2 cups of mayo to this, and I am doubling this recipe as well. And I'm adding the Worcestershire sauce. And because my garlic was frozen, I went ahead and pureed it in before adding anything else to it. This anchovy paste was no joke. It was so hard to get out. And I'm just going to go ahead and add salt and pepper to taste and some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. I do end up tasting this and coming back and adding a lot more of things. But this recipe is absolutely delicious. I couldn't believe how great this tastes. And I don't know why I wasn't making this sooner, because the things that you buy in the store have so many preservatives and ingredients we just don't need to be digesting. And this will save me that trouble. I just need to buy a new anchovy paste tube now. I did get this recipe from Christine's notebook that I will link below, but it is for a chicken wrap recipe. And that is something that I really want to make, especially in the summertime when you don't want to have such big, hearty meals. So this is a great recipe to have on hand.
Yeah, it's like half of us.
As you can see and hear, the kids are very, very excited to have this new treat for them for snack. They gobbled this up. If you have any apples or leftover canned apples of any kind, just make this recipe. You will not regret it at all. Thanks for coming along for week 5 of the Pantry Challenge. If this gave you ideas for using what you already had, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and let me know what forgotten pantry item you're working through this week. I'll see you next week in week 6.